Shalom and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. In this video, I'm going to talk about my modern classics playlist, which goes from 1940 to 1990. Now, these books get a little less leeway than my classics, which were 1940 and before. So, partially because, particularly as we get closer to the 90s, these authors are one, still alive, two, still profiting from this stuff. So their viewpoints and our ideas are still kind of relevant. When you're looking at someone like Roald Dahl, who's popped up in the news recently, who had some anti-Semitic views. In addition, his books can be very, very weird and very, very dark. You do kind of have to look at his background and what's going on with him. In this case, Roald Dahl's since passed. He does have a foundation, so they are profiting from this. They have, however, kind of apologized and acknowledged that he was anti-Semitic, though during his lifetime, his publisher and a lot of people blatantly denied that he was anti-Semitic. Apparently, from the Wikipedia page, he wasn't a great human being. As I said, you can probably tell that a little bit from his books. As much as people call them whimsy, I think the only book I own him is Witches, and that's a very interesting ending. And I will cover some of Roald Dahl's books. But again, it's important to look at, particularly with the ones who were closer to 1940, how their foundation reacts to certain things and what they're doing. Since obviously the author has passed. I don't exactly remember when Roald Dahl passed. I think it was in the early 2000s. But that's the big thing. It's who is profiting from this? Are these people's views still being used to basically support their books? So as opposed to, say, we will get to Rowling again. We will cover Harry Potter. That's far more modern because her books came out later. She's still profiting from her views. This is a little bit different because we're kind of looking at authors who may or may not be alive. Seuss is a little bit of a different story. You can look at him. There, as of this video, have recently removed some of the books that he actually in his lifetime regretted writing. He changed his views that were also xenophobic because he was around World War II when we were in fact fighting the Japanese, and a bit racist as well. So, but he regretted them. In his lifetime, he changed. But he didn't have the power to stop these books, which were insanely popular, from being published. But he himself has, from what I've been able to gather, come out against and wrote some of his books against what was being done because he himself grew and changed. And that's something else to look at. If the authors wrote some questionable stuff, did they change over time? Did they themselves apologize for it? And even read the books. If you enjoy the books, talk about the author. Talk about these subjects. Don't just ignore them. As I said, there is some stuff in Seuss's collection that are great. I will most likely cover The Grinch Stole Christmas, one of my favorite Christmas books, and the book about the trees, the Lorax. Another two kind of more favorite books. I'm not probably going to cover The Cat in the Hat. I own it. Not particularly fond of that book. It has some questionable stuff in there. But with Seuss, he has a huge collection. So you can pick and choose what you want to read. The same with Roald Dahl. I'll probably cover more of his books once I've read them. As far as I know, I only own Witches. That's the only paperback book I have of his. And I haven't really gone through his major collection. I'm more familiar with some of his films, as are a lot of people. So I will cover some of them at some point, just because they are popular. And they may be good books to share. I'm actually familiar with James and the Giant Peach. And a lot of his books have the similar themes. But it is important, particularly, to look at who is profiting from these viewpoints. And what was the mindset of the time. Roald Dahl, there's kind of an explanation if you look into his history to why he would be anti-Semitic. One, it wasn't uncommon in the 1940s. As much as we like to hide it, a lot of people were anti-Semitic back then. So it wasn't exactly an uncommon thing. That doesn't really excuse it because, once again, he died in 2000s. He had a chance to change. As far as I know, he never came out and said he no longer held these beliefs. He was, from the little bit of research I was able to do, his publisher themselves continued to deny it, I think, up until his death. So, but again, that's something to look at in this time period. I mean, 1940 to 1990, it's a big stretch, but you also have to look at, are some of these books outdated? And look at the viewpoints. It is a good way, I mean, though I was alive I was born in the 80s, so some of these books were published during my lifetime. This is history to our kids. So it's important for them to kind of look at the thoughts and views of this time, just as if it was important pre-1940. Because for them, once again, it's a history. It's a window into the past and what people were reading at that time for their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, and what was popular. And again, a lot of these books, though there are some books that were written for people of color, the majority of the people who were being able to afford books like Roald Dahl and Dr. Seuss were the middle class and the upper class. So of course the libraries were everywhere. So it varies. Once again, they are trying to sell books. When it comes to all books, that is the bottom line. The authors are in fact trying to make money. So they're trying to appeal to as many people as possible. That's also something to understand. When you're looking at some of these books, they're trying to appeal around the time they were published what people wanted to read. And a lot of these books, if they're still in print, they were and are popular. So a lot of these books have been continuously in print. That goes the same for my pre-1940s. So if you want to read some of these views, I'm going to cover certain books. I believe The 101 Dalmatians is something I just finished, which fits in this time here. Very interesting book. I will review that, as well as some of the Roald Dahl books. I'll probably look a little bit at Dr. Seuss. He kind of fits in that. They're definitely read aloud books. They're longer. There's not something I would ever read at a story time. And it depends on the book whether I would read it to a toddler. They don't have the attention span for these things, and they can be very hard to read. In fact, as a person who did library story times, you don't read Seuss. You just don't. He's too much of a pain in the butt to read. So, as well as a variety of other books that were written around that time. So I will cover as much as I can. And again, these books are something that I would read to my own kids that I enjoy reading. So, and that's pretty much it. I will do another video kind of on my more modern classics and how to look at those. So I covered a little bit here. So that's it for now. If you want to see more of my reviews, like and subscribe. I will get them posted when I can. Again, I've got a toddler, so I post when I can and I film at night. So thank you.